How do I find the y value for that vertex? That's exactly what I do. I plug -7/2 in the place of x. And work that out. That's a 12, not 17. All right. We're going to work that out. I'm going to use a calculator to help me. I'm going to show you a little trick with your graphic calculator to make your life a lot easier. Okay. Go to y equals, and I'm going to type in the equation that they gave me. X squared plus 7x plus 12. So x squared plus 7x plus 12. Now, everybody's calculator may not be set up to do this, so I'm going to help you set yours up to be able to do this. The way to do that is hit second and then window. You want yours to have it independent on ask, have it highlighted, and the dependent on auto. So that says you're going to type in the x value you want, and it's going to give you the y value that goes with it. It does not matter what these are. You can have any numbers there you want. It doesn't matter what they are. All right. Once it's set to that, hit second graph. I've got some numbers in there from, I was doing this with one of my classes at the high school today. I was helping some kids do some quadratics, and we were doing the same thing. I need to know what the y value is when x is -7/2. So I'm just going to type in over the top of one of these x values, -7/2. Hit enter. -0.25. Which I know is 1/4, if I'm thinking. And I think actually if you will hit alpha F1 and use the fraction symbol, yeah, it'll crank it back in a fraction form for you if you're using one of the with the 2.55 or meter with color. So if you want, if all the answer choices are in fraction form, you probably want to do that. So alpha and then y equals will get you that option. Okay. All right. So that gets us our vertex. We know that vertex is a minimum because A was positive, and we know the graph's going to look something like that, is what we know. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to find are the intercepts. Y-intercept. It's the easy one. Remember, the y-intercept is always 0, c if we're in standard form. We're in standard form. What's c? 12. So this one should be at 0, 12. Automatically, because it's in standard form. A little more difficult to get the intercepts on the x side of things. Takes a little more work. Set the entire equation equal to 0. And then you have the options of factoring or using quadratic formula. Factoring will work on this one if you know how to do it. If you don't know how to factor, that could be a problem. You might want to brush up on that. So I'm going to show you factoring, and then I'm also going to show you quadratic formula with this one so that you've seen both of them. Okay? Factoring, we're looking for numbers that multiply to be 12 and add to be 7. That's how we want to think about this. So the numbers that multiply to be 12, and I do this thing, I call it X method, and it helps me just organize it. And so the way the number up top is done is there's a 1 in front of x squared, so it's 1 times 12, so that's the number up here. 7, the middle number always goes to the bottom. B always goes to the bottom. That's the way I've always done that. So numbers that multiply to be the number up top and add to be the number in the bottom. So that would be 4 and 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 plus 3 is 7. So those are the right two numbers. When I was in high school, I learned to factor by guess and check which works. If you're good at your multiplication tables, it's easy to do. You don't guess but a few times. But with this, there's at least some sort of organized way of getting there, which seems to help speed that along a little bit with that. Now, the next step would be take x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. There's a shortcut to this one because there's a 1 in front of x squared, but there's not always a 1 in front of the x squared. Sometimes there's a 2 or something else. This method works no matter if there's a number there or not. What I've done is I've replaced b with these two numbers here. 7x. This is still 7x here. It's just split up the right way. The reason we split it up that way is because I can take these two together and factor out the greatest common factor, which would be x, leaving x plus 4. And then I take the second two and get the greatest common factor of those two. Greatest common factor of 3x and 12, both of them are positive, would be a positive 3. So I'd put a plus 3, parentheses x plus 4. The reason that's an x plus 4 is what times 3 gives me 3x? X. What times 3 gives me 12? 4. That's where those are coming from. Notice that these parentheses match. If they don't match, it's not factoring right. Okay? So be careful of that. If it will factor, those will match. Okay? Then the final thing is x plus 4 is a factor, x plus 3 is a factor, and you set them each equal to 0 and solve. -4, -3. So my x-intercepts are at the points -4, 0, and -3, 0. Ordered pairs for those. That's using factoring, which is a fine method, but it doesn't always work. It's handy to know, especially when we're heading into Chapter 5 after next week. Might want to brush up on some factoring. If you get to my YouTube channel, there's some videos about factoring out there. Not on our playlist, but on some other playlist things. So you might want to check those out and get some help with that. Quadratic formula. Quadratic formula, x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. I know what answers I'm supposed to get. I'm supposed to get -4 and -3 because I've already done it by factoring. So that's going to help me know if I did this right. Memorize that formula. And the way that I memorize it, or have my high school students memorize it, is singing it to the tune of row, 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 row. If you'll do that, you'll have it memorized and you'll sing it in the shower. X equals -b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And you've got it memorized. So there, you've got that on the video if you want to go back and make that an iTunes playlist thing. All right. Plugging in the stuff. -b, so -7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 12, all divided by 2 times 1. So I'm working that out. -7 plus or minus the square root. 7 squared is 49. 4 times 1 is 4 times 12 is 48. So that's 49 minus 48, which is 1. So it simplifies out pretty nice on this one. What's the square root of 1? It's 1. I've got two problems here. I've got -7 plus 1, then divided by 2, and I've got -7 minus 1, then divided by 2. So I just do those two problems. -7 plus 1 divided by 2, that's going to be -6 over 2, which is -3. Hey, all right, that's one of the answers I was supposed to get. I did it right. Then I do -7 minus 1 over 2. That's -8 over 2. -4. Same two answers, quadratic formula or factoring. Keep in mind, quadratic formula always works. Factoring does not always work for finding zeros. Factoring is useful for factoring, not necessarily the best for just finding zeros. Quadratic formula seems to be the way to go when you're just trying to find zeros. In chapter 5, we try to factor some bigger polynomials, so not being able to factor is kind of a big thing there. But finding zeros, quadratic formula is handy for. Okay? All right. Let's look at the next form that we could deal with here. The next form is vertex form. We're going to start with it. Go with it next. Vertex form. You might see, or if you get to hitting up Google for some help on this, if you see shifted form, those are the same things. Okay, vertex form could also be called shifted form, depending on, if you're from the United States or Canada, I think calls it shifted form. Different parts of the world call it different things. It's the same stuff. Okay, vertex form looks like this: f of x equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. All right. Now, that a that's in front is the exact same a from standard form. It does all of the same things. If it's positive, it opens up. If it's negative, it opens down. If it's positive, we have a minimum. If it's negative, we have a maximum. All of those things from that a are exactly the same. Nothing is changing as far as what a does. All right? H and K are the vertex. Okay? It's called vertex form because the vertex is written right there in it. It's always the opposite of what's in the inside. So if it's -3, then the vertex is going to be +3. On the inside, it's the opposite. The K that's on the outside, we're always going to keep whatever's there. If it's +3, it's going to be +3 out here. If it's -6, it's going to be a -6 in the K, in the Y value of the vertex. Okay? Inside's always going to change signs. When we pull that out to get the vertex. Now, because we get the vertex for free, we also get the axis of symmetry for free. What part of the vertex goes along with the axis of symmetry? In standard form, axis of symmetry was -b over 2a. What part of the vertex was that? It was the x value. So the axis of symmetry, if we're in vertex form, we've already got the vertex, which we really already have the axis of symmetry. It's going to be x equals h, wherever h is. X equals h is our axis of symmetry. We don't have to do any calculations to get those things. They're already there. Okay, which is a nice when we got some stuff we don't have to work for. Okay. The intercepts, again, y-intercepts, not as easy here, but still not hard. Plug in 0 for x. Work it out. That's all you got to do to get a y-intercept. X-intercepts. We're still going to set it equal to 0. And we're going to solve by square roots. We'll make things a lot quicker by solving by square roots there. We could multiply this thing out and simplify it and get it in standard form and then do quadratic formula. That's a legal option, but it sure takes a lot longer than solving by square roots. So I want to show you how to solve by square roots if you're starting with vertex form. Okay. You know what I forgot to do? Show you the graph for number 1, or for the first example. Let's go back and look at the graph for A. I forgot to do that. Got so wrapped up in doing that. I've already got the equation in there. I need to turn off my stat plots on the calculator because they can mess up graphs of regular equations, because I'm not doing a stat plot right now. I'm just doing this. So I want to take, hit second stat plot, and then option 4 just turns them all off. So I'm going to hit option 4 and hit enter. And you'll notice that that plot 1 is not darkened in anymore. So that means you're okay. So now I can hit graph. And I only see part of it because my graph is zoomed to zoom 9. So I want to hit zoom 6 to get the normal window. Zoom 6 on the PI-84 always gets you back to a 10 by 10 window. You see our parabola? You see it crossing the x-axis at -4 and -3. That's what we thought was happening. The vertex down here at the bottom, it's a minimum. That's what we knew was happening. That vertex, it looks like it's about halfway between -3 and -4. That's -3.5. We found that. Okay. The y-intercept should be up there around 12. It looks like it's going to be, because here's 10. 12 is just out of screen. If we wanted to check that for sure, you could hit window and then change your y max to like 14, and you'll see it crossing. It crosses right there. There's 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 right there. It's crossing the y-axis. We can see that graph. The only thing it doesn't graph is the axis of symmetry. It's an imaginary thing, and we kind of make it, it's there, but we don't draw it on the graph here. Okay. All right, let's go back to example B now. I feel better about that. All right, example B. Let's get an equation that's in vertex form. 2 parentheses x minus 3 squared plus 4. And we're going to find these things. Axis of symmetry, vertex. I don't need any space here because I'm not going to have to calculate anything. Beautiful. I will need some space to do my intercepts. What do I know about the vertex of this particular equation? Three, 4. What do I know about the axis of symmetry? Remember, it matches that guy. X equals 3. Always going to match axis of symmetry and the x value vertex. Always got to be the same number. If they're not, something's wrong. Intercepts. So I'm going to start with the y-intercept because that's the easier one to do. All I'm doing is taking 0 and putting it in the place of x and working that problem out. I can get a little help from my calculator if I want to. If I hit y equals and type in that equation, 2 parentheses x minus 3 close parentheses squared plus 4. And hit second graph to go back to that table, I can type in any x value